Okay, so the recording started. Again, welcome to Make the Cut and Popup Card Studio question and answer webinar. Tonight is February 18th, 2014. Thanks for joining us. And thank you to Julie and Susan who are helping tonight. We've already gone through the ground rules. Each week I post a thread on the forum to encourage people to ask questions for the upcoming webinar ahead of time. Gives us a little time to prep if it's a complex question, or put together a demo if it's a question about a project. So that's where we're going to start with the questions tonight. So everybody should be seeing my screen, right? Yes, I'm sharing my screen. Okay. So the first question tonight is from Bill, who doesn't usually join us. He listens to the recording. So he had sent me a file, so I'm going to bring this in. And in essence what it is there are sometimes in some projects in Popup Card Studio when you try to make global changes using the global settings, that sometimes it gets kind of wacky. So I'm going to I got to recreate his problem earlier, so hopefully I'll be able to do that here in a second. And Andy is aware of that, and so when the the next release with bug fixes come out, hopefully that'll be one of the bug fixes that are fixed. So I'm going to bring in, this is Bill's project that he was having trouble with. At any rate, so if we try to do, so you can see we're over the edges a little bit. So let's say we wanted to go into edit global operations to make the card bigger. So I'm going to say I want it to be 8.5 inches by 11 inches and do a preview, and you would think that it would just make the dimensions proper. But you can see when we do a preview, of course, then that works. So let me cancel this. It's not going to mess up for me now. Let's do a different measurement, 8.5 by 6. Preview. There we go. So you can see how it did make the card bigger, but it also brought everything out on the Z level, like 5.5 inches. So kind of interesting. So the workaround for that, well, there's a couple workarounds. One is, copy pieces, create the card the right size and copy pieces over. That can be kind of, in this case where there might be a lot of things, it might be aggravating to try to do all that again. I did find that sometimes what helps is when you do that, so let's do this again, 8.5 by 6 inches, and do a preview. Gives you the wonky results. Hit apply. So now we have it in our project. It's not what we want. And again, this is just a temporary, it might work for you, workaround for this particular bug. Anyway, so immediately go back and do an undo, and then go right back in and do the same exact operation. So 8.5 by 6. And usually that will work. So there, that worked. And then you can hit apply, and then it's saved. There's still issues with it, like if we wanted to bring up the Z, like this, if we look at the bottom is sticking out here, a quarter of an inch or whatever it is, I'm sorry, that wouldn't be the Z, that'd be the Y. Excuse me. So sometimes, if you know the things that you want to do, sometimes you can get them to happen all together. But so I went backwards on everything, so I'm back to his original picture. So let's try this again and say we want to try to change the Z as well. Right now we can't. There's nothing we can do here to do that. So if we do a preview, we still can't change that, so we just have to hit apply, hit the back, go in, global operations, 8.5, 6, and still can't do the Z. Well, let's see if we can do the Z. So I'm not sure this will work. So let's say we want to go up a quarter of an inch. Preview. Actually, I think that was down a quarter of an inch. I didn't move it at all. Oh, I did Z. I want a Y. Thank you.
And I think if you were to bring up Y just till it says 0, it should be okay.
Yeah.
Because right now you're at...
I had to cancel that because I couldn't do anything with it. So let's see if I can do this again. 8.5. 6. Yeah, it's not letting me do anything yet there. Back. Global operations, 8.5.
Yeah, it's still not letting you.
Yeah,
I think you can now hit apply and then try it. Now try it.
Yeah. See, but it won't let me go.
Yeah.
It won't go me that way. I can go the other way. Which that would actually work. Let's see. Let's go back 1/4 inch. I don't know if that's high enough or too high. Apply, review. This doesn't always work with the Y. Is it 25? I think I only could get it to work if I did it together. It's gonna, yeah.
Well, set your Z back to 0.
Okay.
Your Z.
Oh, when I do
defaulting.
it. Okay.
What's wrong is Z is defaulting out to 6, which is why it's pushing it out 6 inches.
Yeah. So this one I can't. So you're saying apply here.
Anyways, it's going to be specific to projects, so it's
just
something I got to fix.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't slide. Wait, can you slide the Z now to 0? That's what I've been saying.
Yeah, no, I can't.
Won't let you. Okay. Oh, whatever. Don't dwell on it because it's nothing you can demonstrate in the webinar. So.
So that's part of. Well, that's basically Bill's question here. So there are, depending what you want to do, there are some workarounds, but basically it's a bug. It's not anything that you're doing wrong, and it's something that should be fixed in the next release. But that's, if until the next release comes out, you may want to, if you're going to do something complex, you may want, and you're not just fooling around, you may want to actually be sure of what size you want and make sure, make it that way right away. So, any questions on that? I never set up my questions, actually.
I don't see any questions so far.
Okay, good. Okay, so the next question is from Eleanor. If Eleanor, if you're on, if you could indicate whether or not you have a microphone and let us know. So if I understand your question correctly, well,
she is on.
Okay. Does she have a microphone?
She has her hand up.
Okay. Let me go there.
Muted.
Hello, Eleanor. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Am I in bad shape here? Can you hear me?
No, we can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Oh, okay.
So, obviously these pictures aren't the greatest. This is probably the best one here. So, my understanding is you sort of want layers so that you can design something like this in PCS, knowing that you can't cut it directly from PCS this way, but during the design phase, have a layer that you can use for measurements or whatever, and then just make it disappear when you actually go to cut. Is that?
I want to basically export. Well, my understanding is I wouldn't cut from PCS, but if I had layers and I could export pieces of it, in other words, take advantage of the braces, the attachments where it attaches to the back of the card or the bottom of the card. But if you did the whole thing in PCS, then everything would be proportioned properly.
Okay, well, you can do that now, and I'll sort of show that a little bit here, and I'm going to show it sort of based on what I could tell from this picture, but the one thing I want to mention here is this particular method here is not a PCS. So a Popup Card Studio will allow you to cut from a single piece of paper without needing to glue any of the supports. The only thing you really need to glue is if you're doing a like a double pop-up like Susan has done, or you're gluing a backing to your card or whatever like that. But as far as supports and that kind of stuff, the PCS isn't for those type of pop-ups. It's for where it's basically cut out of a single piece of material. This here looks like it's cut out at least two. Maybe this piece is glued in, or maybe this piece is glued in, because they're right over top of each other, or this one is over top of this one, but it's not missed. There's no parts missing from there. It's kind of hard to tell from this angle, and none of the other pictures really work.
The top and the base itself and the brace that goes back is one piece. Then you add that second brace.
The top brace or the middle brace?
The top brace is actually a mirror of the vase with a hole in it.
Okay. Okay, so then you sort of swing it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's one piece. It would be like the vase with a little oval cut out of it, and the rest of with a little arc cut out of it, and then you just leave the rest of the thing to go back.
Right. Okay. Go ahead.
I understand that it won't cut from PCS, but it'd be really nice to do what you could, and then take it to MPC and slug the whole thing. I've been doing this kind of thing, and you can do it in MTC, but you kill a lot of trees figuring out if you've got your proportions right.
Right. So let me go through. I'm going to go ahead and mute you now while I go through this, but I'll go through and sort of show how I would do something like this. Not all the way through, but and give you some ideas of how you can do that.
Thank you.
So let me go ahead and mute you up here so I don't get any feedback. I'm going to leave your hand raised just so if I need to ask you a question quick, I can undo you quick. So, okay, so what I'm going to do is bring over this one. I sort of was prepping this ahead of time. So I actually did this to where you could cut out. Now, I just, again, I'm not the artist. I made a quick vase. I sort of determined that I wanted look from your pictures like the anchors went wider than the vase front to sort of make it look like it's, more three-dimensional, still swinging out. And that you wanted the holes in the middle to shove flowers down there, or whatever. So I started out with a design, which you could pull this in from Make the Cut, or I happened to design this right in Popup Card Studio, and I had it set up in essence, center on the page where I wanted it, etc. The sort of the shape that I wanted, and then I added the horizontal pieces, sort of base, sort of the center here. Again, I'm working off the pictures, from here. It sort of looked like, actually that's not that one. This one looks like, the first support is sort of near the center of the bulge here, and then the next one up here is sort of at the neck. But I guess what I want to show you is, so I have Make the Cut in the background here. So there's Make the Cut. I can pull this design. I can design it in PCS if I want. If it's a design that I already have in Make the Cut, I can pull it in. I can bring it in, set it up how I want it, centered, and then make the braces to attach, make the anchors to fit that. In this case, I designed it such that I could get Popup Card Studio to actually cut this out, or the design to cut both of them, that they're not a separate piece of paper you add in later. So you can do that, and with a simple, let me go back to the front here. And in fact, when I did this first brace here, in fact, let me just go ahead and let me go ahead and delete that real quick. So you can use your design not only for measurements, which is what I did originally. You can also, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my anchors here. So I'm going to just do 2 anchors and then weld them straight down. Now the problem with this, I don't want that one. The problem with this, you can say, oh, that works out good. I got the anchors. Well, then when you put your design back, it's not good because your anchors are sticking past your actual design. So how can you fix that? Well, an easy way to fix that is take a copy of that. So I did a Control-C, which is the same thing as doing an edit copy, and then paste, Control-V, line it up on these pieces here. So I'm going to do the center card and down, and select both that and the underlying anchor. And in this case, I did a Boolean join, so I have 2 objects selected. I do a Boolean join. I must have more than 2 objects here. Hang on a minute. Oh, did I not? Oh, that should work. Hang on a minute. Try that one. Down, down. And I hold the Shift key and select that one as well. Okay. Now I can do a Boolean join and then do an intersection. And it leaves me with my anchor with this cut out exactly how it needs to be, so that when I glue this on, you don't see the background piece. Now obviously I can't leave this here, like you're saying. You can't leave this here to cut, because you mess up your anchors then, obviously. So what you can do is either leave that off to the side, which you probably don't really want to do, but when you you can just sort of cut it. So Control-X, go over to your Make the Cut project, Control-Shift-V, or this Paste in Place, which is right here. So that's exactly the size that it was in Popup Card Studio. And then, maybe, actually, I don't even have to add a new page. Let me just delete that. Then when you export this as an SVG file, I should call this base SVG. And where did I save that? I should have paid attention there. Why are you not responding? I have a pop-up card. I have a pop-up somewhere, but I can't see it. There we go. Sorry. So that's my downloads. Okay. Give me a second here. So when I import this SVG file, you can see that this piece, which you would cut out separately, but it will fit. It fits right there. So that once you cut this pop-up card out, you can use the anchor here, or the base, to then glue this on when you actually do it. So it's not much different than doing, if you've looked at some of Susan's videos where she's sort of had a design, like she's done a robots where she has all the paper pieces already in Make the Cut. She does a shadow of them, takes that shadow into Make the Cut, into Popup Card Studio, designs around that, and then when she cuts things out and prints things out, everything's the right size. So you can go back and forth between Make the Cut and Popup Card Studio, very easily. And if while in Make the Cut you do paste in place, the size will remain the same as what it is in Popup Card Studio. Popup Card Studio only there is no paste in place. It's just paste, the plain old paste. It'll keep it the same size. So that's one of the ways you can sort of do, both pieces. As far as if you actually had to have a design where you couldn't do multiple anchors from one piece, you actually had to cut it out of a separate piece and then glue it. Excuse me, that would be a little bit, maybe more difficult. But I'm not sure how. Again, once you bring in to Make the Cut, you have all the sizes and everything proper. So, if we didn't have this top part of the anchor, we couldn't do that as out of one piece, then, you could still design it based on, this size. In fact, I think you said it basically was you inversed this, or mirrored that and flipped it up type of situation. Anyway, so I guess the bottom line is there is no layers right now in Popup Card Studio. It's not to say that there can't be in the future. You can sort of think of, give me a second here, I got to find my Popup Card Studio. You can sort of think of each Z order, each object that has its Z order is that sort of a layer. But right now you can't turn those layers on and off. Like when we had this, it'd be nice to sort of keep this with the project. I'm guessing this is sort of where you might want a layer that you could turn on and off, is you'd want to keep this with the project in PCS, but turn it off when you either render or when you export to an SVG or to actually cut it out or whatever you're going to do. But right now there isn't that. So the situation again is Andy can make the program do a lot of complex things, but is that going to help people or distract people? And his philosophy with Make the Cut, and Andy, you can correct me if I'm wrong. The philosophy with Make the Cut and Popup Card Studio was to make it powerful enough, yet simple as you can, so that the greatest number of people can use it, and still have a powerful tool, if that makes sense. So I'm going to unmute you real quick and just see if you have any other questions on that. Okay, you're unmuted.
Thanks. I'm not quite clear how you did the oval braces. I just
okay.
haven't done it yet.
Yeah, so I can. Yeah, so let me mute you and just do something real quick here. So hang on. Let me create a new one. So I'm just copying this same vase in here, and I'm going to make a couple copies here to try to. I didn't do it this way originally, but I'm going to see if I can do it for you this way. So, so we have, this is the vase that we want. So ignore these for a minute. This is the vase we want. We want it centered on the card, and of course down at the bottom. Make sure it's good. We get a nice fold line there. The one thing I didn't do here, I guess I should check here, is you should always get in the habit of doing a print. Ignore this. That's our extra piece. Do a print preview to make sure that where your anchors come in, that they are actually fold lines. I should get in the habit of showing that, so people get in the habit of doing that before they actually try to cut and find out, oh, they're not fold lines. Anyway, so this is where our shape is. So we want one of these. So let me do this. I'm going to Control X, which is the same thing as Edit Cut. So it takes that, puts it into the clipboard. So I can do a paste now, and that would be what I just cut. I'm going to switch to the horizontal layers, and I'm going to come up to. I think it's going to be about 0.75 is about the midpoint, let's just say. So now, I'm going to look at it from this point here. I'm going to paste. So here's our vase. And so there's a couple ways you can do it. I would probably mirror this, center it, and then back it down to the layer. So, and you can switch back with the Z layers to sort of see where it is, at any given point. And now mine, when I first did this, it looked like from your pictures, as best as I could tell, it actually extended out. That may or may not be the case. So depending what you want here, you can, make this larger or smaller, whatever you want. You can leave it, we can move it back a little bit. Let's just leave it the way it is. So basically centered and back. And then, so we know that this flat edge is already in the back. So then all we have to do is crop, and I want to do an exclusive crop. And I didn't show you this, but let's go back. Control Q, sorry. Let's select our front piece. Let's just bring that up to the top so we can see it. This is on a 1-inch plane, right? So that means when we come to this piece here, and let me bring it back up top so we can see it here. I basically wanted to go from the back of the card to 1 inch out because that's where it's going to attach to the, the anchor that goes horizontal or vertically down. So the easiest way to do is, with your snapping on something big, leave it 1/8 of an inch. Go to your cropping tool. Make sure. Actually, let's do an inclusive. We'll do it from the back. So we want to basically come out 1 inch and say that's what we want to keep. So now that's my anchor for that mid-level. And then we can do the same thing. Now we're not going to leave this front vase here at all. So let me go back to this so we can bring that back up to the top. And then we're going to basically do the same thing here. I'm going to Control X, and then we're going to come up to, somewhere up here, somewhere in the neck level. So maybe right about there. We'll do the paste. And again, I would probably flip it. And in this case, I want to center it. But then I'm going to manipulate it so that I get this part here to be about 1 inch out. And to me, this is a little bit big, too wide. So I'll probably actually narrow it down to a little bit. Center it. And sort of, let's just get this guy and put him on top here. So you might like how that's going to look eventually. It's not going to have this cut out, obviously. And again, we do the same thing. So we're going to be on that scale, and we don't want it sticking out the back. We want it from 1 inch, and we want it to be flat here and flat in the front so we can do an anchor down. So we're going to do the cropping. We're going to do inclusive, so that means I want to start at make sure I'm at the back with a dotted line and then come out to the 1 inch mark. And then I have that piece. And again, it doesn't look nice because I have this on top. But, oops. So now if I actually move this or remove it, let's just move it out of the way for now, you can now see that I have these two horizontal anchors. Then to get the holes in the middle, I just did something simple like, select this and then do a shadow and do a 1/4 inch in or whatever it is that you want to do. And then do, select both of them and do a join. Same thing down here. Select that, do a shadow, 1/4 inch or whatever, however big you need that center to be. Select both. Sorry, I did a D instead of a shift, and do a join. So now I have the two anchors. And if this was lower and cut out of this, that'd be fine. It wouldn't be a problem because we really just want to make sure you have some place to anchor in the back. And then this is where I would do the front anchors again. And to me, it's easiest just to do the auto quad 2-point rec. Line up, get the dotted lines, and then do the same thing here, and then do a weld. You could do it all. You could hand do it. Oops. There we go. Go back to selection and then do a weld. Right? So that's where we are. And then the last thing is we want to make a copy of this. So I did a Control-C to copy it, Control-V to paste it, bring it over, center it, get it in the right position, select the anchor in the background as well. And it looks like I might have probably want to narrow that down a little bit, but you'll at least get the concept here. And we're going to do the Boolean join intersect. And then so now our anchor, except for where I messed up on the top here, will be completely hidden by this piece. If you cut it out and make the cut. Oops, not that piece. This piece. So that's how I did. That's not how I did the anchors, but that's one way you can do the these anchors. So I still have an anchor back here. So the two sides are this hole here. We probably didn't even have to make this the shadow on this piece here. Actually, it didn't look like I joined it, did it? So let me just get rid of this one. We actually didn't even need to do that because you're going to have a hole cut out from this upper part of the anchor. So you're going to have plenty of space in there to stick down in there, whatever you want. And again, do a quick print preview to make sure that you've got all your mountain folds and valley folds correct. And again, this piece here you would get rid of and copy that over to make the cut or whatever you're going to do the cutting out of. So did that answer your question? I'm going to unmute you here. Does that help you a little bit?
Yes. The one question I had is when you switched to the horizontal plane. I didn't see what you did.
Oh yeah.
So fast.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So the shortcut. So there's two ways to switch between horizontal and vertical planes. One is you can come up to on the view properties thing. You can select either back, which is the vertical plane, or the bottom, which is the horizontal plane. The shortcut to that is hitting the space bar, and it swaps between the two. And so that's what I do a lot, and I should mention that as I go through.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So let me go. I'm going to unmute you, lower your hand, and then ask Sue and Julie if there's any other questions regarding that subject.
None so far.
Okay. Again, it's very easy to paste pieces back and forth between Make the Cut and Popup Card Studio. In the next version, for those of you that have not seen last week's webinar, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago now, Andy demonstrated one of the things he added in the next version is that it's going to be easy to export some of the solid shapes from PCS as opposed to the normally when you export to SVG, like everything's got like this shape it's not a solid shape because it's got fold lines at the top, fold lines at the bottom, fold lines in the middle, and he's adding a feature where you can export as shapes, and then it's easy and Make the Cut to give them a texture, give them a color for print and cut, for paper piecing, whatever you want to do. So it'll actually be even easier in the next release as well. But you can very easily copy between Make the Cut and Popup Card Studio, keeping the right dimensions. The key is making sure that when you're copying into Make the Cut, that you do the either use this icon, which is paste from clipboard, but it's paste in place. Do the Control-Shift-V, which is the shortcut, or you can come down to Edit and say paste in place. Okay. Let's go back to the questions. Okay. So the next one, this we're going to have, Julie's going to do a demonstration of a simple pop-up card, which hopefully will answer this person's question. I do ask, actually, it's good if anytime our webinars or videos, Susan's videos, Andy's videos, whatever, if you have trouble with it, like you're saying here that you watch some of Susan's videos but the sound was awful, if you can let Susan know, or if you can't get a hold of her, send me an email or whatever, let us know the specific ones that you're having problems with, whether you got them from Vimeo, in her case, whether you got them from Vimeo or YouTube, and then if it's a certain area that sort of got garbled, because I've listened to most of her videos and haven't heard any audio problems. She is softer than I am, so you might have to adjust your volume, but if you can give us where the sound was really bad that you couldn't understand at all, and then she might be able to correct that and upload a corrected version, or maybe that file got corrupted during the original upload. So, please let us know if you have any specifics. Whether you got it from Vimeo, YouTube, which one it was, and if it was only in a particular part, it happened from 10 minutes and 19 seconds through 13 minutes and 14 seconds, whatever the case may be. That would help us to try to improve it for future people as well. So before I turn it over to Julie, I'm going to actually address this one. This is, in essence, right now when you do Popup Card Studio, one of the options you have, sorry, we go to Popup Card Studio. When you create a new one of the options you have is what we call a 180-degree open card. And that is basically what this is. And there's lots of ways to do it. It's more complicated than a standard pop-up card, 90-degree pop-up card. You can do some of it within Popup Card Studio, but it's not refined to the point where it's like you've got to go through a lot of work to get it to work. So when Andy fixes that, then we'll sort of demonstrate it. Susan will have demos, when it gets working better in Popup Card Studio. So we're not going to do any kind of demos on this right at the moment. You could actually do this in thank you, make the cut. I was trying to say Popup Card Studio and make the cut at the same time. These are probably glued at the top. I don't know specifically, but if you think of this as two pieces that are mirrored, that this back piece is separate from this piece. It looks like it's solid here, but think of this as actually being separated here. Your shapes, in this case, the two cherubs and the cross, cut out except with a hinge at the bottom, and then you glue the back piece, and it's mirrored on the back, and so you glue the back piece and the front piece on your backing just a little bit apart, or in this case it looks like they kept their folds far enough and they could butt this up together, and then you just glue the tops together, and that's how you can do it. A simple one. When it gets working in Popup Card Studio, it'll be easier to do that as part of a design. Like, you won't have to fiddle around with it too much. But right now it's just too much. It's not refined enough to make it simple enough to demo, I guess is the proper way of saying it. So we're not going to actually answer that question other than to say that we're not going to demo that yet. We've mentioned that before. Once Popup Card Studio gets refined in that area, we'll do demos. I don't know if it'll be before Easter, though. Okay, so Julie, are you ready for me to switch?
I am.
Okay, so let me switch over to Julie's screen. And I will let you know when we see your screen, and then I will go on mute. Okay, so we see your screen, and I'm going on mute.
Okay, well, I thought I would do this simple little design. Irish blessings, I'll call it. I'm Irish. Our whole family's Irish. So I want to do something very basic to answer the question of, if you're total new to Popup Card Studio, I want to show you how to do it. So the first thing you're going to do is click on your icon to open up Popup Card Studio. And so let me close this one. I hope I don't close something I shouldn't. And I'll just open a new file here by clicking on this page icon. And when you do that, when you open a new file, you get the option to do a 90-degree open type or a 180-degree open type. And as Brian just said, right now the working portion of the software is the 90-degree open type. So make sure you have a little check in the box. You can toggle by clicking on the box. So we want this box on the left to be orange. And then next thing we want to do is designate the size of our card when it's closed, when it's folded up. Now I like to keep my cards a standard A2 size, which is 5.5 by 4 1/4. I like the width to be 5 1/2 and the height to be 4 1/4, but you can use any size that you want. Just keep in mind that you're selecting the size of the closed pop-up card. So you're going from across the front just back to the middle of the card, and you're measuring that portion of it. When you have the size typed in, you would click on Create. This is the screen we come to when we're ready to create a card. This bottom section is called the bottom, and this section up here is called the back. If we click on the tab on the left to view properties, you'll see that there's a grid here. This grid right now is on the back. As you can see, edit side says back. If I click on the down arrow and click on bottom, then the grid goes to the bottom. Now what we need to be concerned about first, I'll go back to the back, is how far away from the back of the card is the grid. Now if I right click in the middle and drag to the right, I can see that this grid is 1 inch away from the back as position shows it up here. And anything I place on this plane where the grid is, it's going to be 1 inch from the back of the card. Now once I've turned this around, I can get back to the original position by going up to the top of the screen and clicking on the Reset Zoom, and it takes us back to the original. So anything that I add right now is going to go 1 inch from the back. Well, let's suppose that I would like to make this word that I'm making be at 2 inches. I just type in 2, and this plane moved out to 2 inches, as you can see here. So what I'm going to do first is add some text. And when I add the text, it'll come at the 2 inch level from the back. So to add text, I click on the T, and I need to select my font. I'm using just any old fat font will do. I cut the other day a nice skinny font, and it was beautiful, but I'm going to use the Accent SF because it's nice and fat. You could click on that down arrow and pick any of the fonts that are installed in your computer. Once you select it, it's in the window. Then you can click your cursor, your mouse, right on the card and then type in your words. And all the text comes in capital letters. So I'm going to type in Irish and then click on Add. If I didn't click uppercase, let's see what would happen. Well, look at that. It comes in lowercase. But there's a reason that we want to uppercase, and that is for pop-up cards, uppercase tends to be able to be easier to work with in terms of getting the shapes to make pop-up cards easier. So I leave mine on uppercase, then you click on Add to add it to your screen. Now this down here is kind of a shadow of this, so we can ignore these purple shapes. What we're looking at is the ones in light blue here. Now that I'm done with the text, I'm going to click on the top arrow on the left, which is a selection arrow, and you notice when I click it that all the text is highlighted in yellow. That means it's selected. Now the first thing I want to do is change this. The top edges are going to be, I want them to stick to the back of the card, and I want the bottom edge to stick to the bottom of the card, but no letters will stick anywhere if they're not perfectly horizontally shaped. So what I need to do is grab my cropping tool, which is the fourth tool on the left, and make sure inclusive rectangle is selected. Then I'm going to kind of hold my mouse over the top of this word to see if I cut a straight line, where would I get a straight line in every letter, because I want every letter connected. So right there I'm going to left click and drag, and then I'm going to try to get the bottom white line also high enough so that each letter has a horizontal plane on it. So as soon as I let go of my mouse, it made straight lines on the bottom and the tops of the letters. So now that I've got my letters cropped, I'm ready to resize them. To resize them again, I'm going to go back to the selection arrow at the top of the left toolbar. When I click it, then my letters are selected. And now I want to resize them. And there's I'd like to make my letters as wide as I can. Now my card is 5.5 inches wide, and I want to leave a little margin, so I'm going to make my letters 5 inches wide. So I'm going to go down to position and size on the right hand side of the screen, and my lock is unlocked because I'm going to resize these to be exactly the size I want. I want them on the width, I want it to be 5 inches wide, and then I have to press enter. And that resizes to 5 inches. Now high, if you remember, I set my position to 2 inches from the back, and I want my letters to fold over exactly in the center. That means that the height of my letters needs to be double the 2 inches. 2 inches for the front and 2 inches for the top. So I'm going to make the height 4 and press enter. Now I have some really tall letters, but that's okay. I want them to be centered on the card, so we have some nice align and distribute tools which will do all the work for us. This centers the letters vertically on the card, and this one will attach them or align to the bottom of the page. So now I have my letters anchored to the bottom. I'll turn it around so you can see that they're anchored here. And another way to make sure that they're firmly anchored is to go to File and Print Preview, and I see that I've got red dashed lines at the bottom of my letters. That lets me know that they are anchored, and they will be they've got fold lines there instead of cutting lines. So I'm right-clicking and dragging back. I could just click on that tool there again to take me straight on. This reset zoom. Now what I want to do is fold these letters perfectly in half. And to do that, I have a tool at the bottom of the screen called Fold. And when you hover your mouse over any of these tools, it tells you what it does. Not only does it tell you the name of the tool, but if you look on the left side in this space right here, when I hover over a tool, it tells you what that tool does. It says fold the selected group of shapes to the opposite side. So when I click on this, it folds my letters back to the side layer. If there's more than one layer, the other layer would show in this list, but there's no other layer, so it automatically folded it back to the back. So I'm going to accept that, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. So we have the tops of the letters here and the fronts of the letters here. Now you could do any word this way, and you could call the card finished. Very simple. Let's check our lines though to make sure that it's all connected and looks the way it should. I go to File, Print Preview. Now I see that there are valley folds. Any lines that are going to be folded with a valley will be red, dotted lines. And at the bottom we have some red dotted lines. And then right up the middle, over the letters, we have blue dotted lines which represent mountain folds. then on the sides, these will be folded back into valley folds. So if I get to this stage of my design and the dotted lines are missing, then I know that I need to fix my design so that the edges are anchored. Usually that has to do with maybe if it didn't anchor, maybe the lines weren't straight or perfectly horizontal. So I have this word here, 2 inches back and 2 inches down. So do we have any questions so far?
None so far.
No questions so far.
Okay. So I like to, in my PCS Toots group, I did post a similar design to this specifically to give people a chance to try something very easy. Now if we want to go further and we want to add something, let's say we want to add text to the bottom of the card here, anything that goes on the very bottom of the card or on the very back of the card will need to be in a stencil style, or when you cut it, the centers of a design would fall out. I'll show you that. To put text on a plane, we're going to first have to move this grid to that plane. So to do that, I'm going to press a space bar and it'll transfer the grid from the back of the card to the bottom of the card, just like that. Now you notice that the grid went to the top plane. I can move it down either by going to the position on the right side of the screen and typing 0, or the other way to do it is hold the Control and Shift key and use the scroll wheel. Is that right? Yes, wasn't working. Hold the Control and Shift key and use the wheel on your mouse to scroll all the way down. And that's often faster than going over here and typing in the 0, but it works either way. So to put things on the back of the card, I want to have the bottom of this design showing. Now I can right-click and drag down to see more of this, and then I can hold the Control key and right-click and drag up to center it more on the screen. So I'm going to right-click and turn this so I can work better. Now to zoom in, I use my scroll wheel up, and that gets me a little closer. So I'm going to click on the T on the left side, and then click my mouse anywhere on the card, and I'm going to type in blessings, and then click on Add. Now when I click on the selection arrow again, it's all highlighted, selecting my text. Now it's obviously way too wide for my card, so I'm going to go over here to width and type in 5 and enter, because my card is 5.5 inches wide and I want it all to fit nicely. So the next thing I will do is click on the vertical center, and then I can leave it this size, or I can make it bigger. I can make the text bigger by making sure the straight arrows, you toggle between the rotation arrows and the straight arrows just by left clicking. So if I want these taller, I can just drag it out to be taller. Then I can click and drag to position it if I want. Or I could indicate the exact size over here. Maybe I want my letters to be 1.25 inches high and press enter. Then it resizes that. So I'm going to hold the Control and right-click up so I can see my letters a little better, and zoom in on that B, and I'll show you what I mean by making your letters a stencil. These letters are just going to cut out of the background. But if we cut out the B, it's just going to look like the outside lines, because these pieces will just fall out unless you go find them after you cut them and glue them back in on the backing. But I hate to hunt for little pieces, so I always make the inside, any letter that has inside shapes, I always make them a stencil by going over to the left toolbar and clicking on the eraser tool. Now the width of this eraser is by default, I believe, 1 millimeter. You could make it narrower, but 1 millimeter works for me. I also have the straight line option selected so that any line that I draw or erase in this instance is going to be straight. So I'm just going to find the place where I want to start my lines, where you see where the blue line goes right through the middle of those pieces. So I'm just going to left click my mouse, hold it, and drag right through the middle of these letters. And when I can move it before I release the mouse, I can kind of position it where I want. And then I'm going to release the mouse, and it automatically erases the middle. Now I have two pieces that will cut out of the back, but you can still tell that it's a B. The other thing that I could do is use a stencil alphabet created for this, but when it's just one letter that needs to be fixed, I find it's much easier just to do that. Now my letters will be cut out of the base of the card, so I can go to print preview again and see that these letters will cut out of the bottom of the card. And I should name my file. I should have named it, saved it as a long time ago. I'll just save it as Irish with my initials so I know I made it, and save. Now I could put a design on the top of the back of the card if I want. I'll click again on the zoom reset, the third magnifying glass here. And so now I have some working space here. I thought maybe, oh, I know, shamrock would be nice. I can make a shamrock stencil, pretty simple. If I click on the heart, that takes me to some of the shapes built in to Popup Card Studio. I'm going to click on generic and just get me one of these hearts. I double click on it and it's added. And you notice that it was added down here, but I wanted it up here. Well, while it's selected, you know it's selected because it has yellow around it, I'm going to use Control Z to cut it. Now I'm going to press the space bar to get to the back of the card and put that position to 0. So now I'm on the back of the card, and I'm going to press Control V after I press that selection arrow to get my heart to the back of the card. Well, I need 3 hearts, so we have a duplicate button down here at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to click on the duplicate, and I'd like 3 columns and 1 row, and I'm going to click on accept. So I would like to, I'm going to click away from that so I can select each one. I'm going to rotate this one by clicking on it and clicking again to toggle to rotation arrows. I'm going to rotate it around to the side and kind of move it close to but not touching this other heart because I'm making a stencil. If the pieces touch, then the whole thing might fall out. It wouldn't be too bad to have the whole thing cut out because there's no inside shapes, but I kind of like the stencil look. I'm going to click this and I'm going to rotate it the other way and drag that over here, kind of close. I've got my snapping set on 1/8 of an inch, so it'll keep them pretty close together. And then I think what I'll do, I'm clicking and dragging around to select those 3, and I'm going to click on the join tool to join them as one unit so that when I click the center tool that they'll go right to the center without me having to worry about finding the center myself. I'm going to move it up a little because I think I'd like to add another basic shape. I'll click on the library, and there's a crescent here. Double click that. To get a stem, I'll just use the eraser tool to kind of erase it. Oh, that's a cropping tool. Oh, I could use it. I could use the cropping tool to just select a part of this that I want. And it's cropped, and now I can use it as a stem. So I'm going to rotate it. And just kind of move it into position. And I can zoom in by rolling my mouse wheel. And I think I'll move this down. Now it won't move down where I want it because it's got snapping on it 1/8 of an inch. So if you can't move it everything exactly where you want it, you can click on this arrow right next to snapping and change the snapping to a smaller increment to allow you to make finer adjustments. I think I would even like to make this smaller. Then you can just put it where you want. Now that I've got those the way that I like them, they're a little bit too wide for my taste. So I'm going to join them all together by clicking on the join. And I'm just going to drag this in a little bit. And then center it. So now when I zoom back out and I drag down a little bit so you can see it, and control right arrow and slide it up so you can see here, then I can kind of right click and rotate it to see how it looks. Then I could get a virtual snapshot or a nice picture of how it's going to look by clicking on this window here from a virtual snapshot, and it will render a pretty good idea of what this is going to look like once it's cut. Sometimes if there are problems in your design, they'll show up there. And it's kind of nice to save this design to your computer so that when you have it in your folder, you can actually see a picture of the design before you open it. In order to save this picture, you could save it either as a small thumbnail or as a larger picture. And so if you want to save it, that picture, if you're happy with it, you can click on Export and render to a PNG file or Project Thumbnail. I usually like to do a high quality one, but I'll just, for time's sake, I'll do standard quality. And it'll assign the name of the file to your image, and then when it's done rendering it, it'll give you a little signal to know that you can look at it to see if you like it. Meanwhile, we can go back to File, Print Preview to make sure all of our lines are looking like that's a signal that the design is done. The low quality gives you a dark image, which I don't care for. That's why I always do a high quality one, but it takes more time. So we want to go to Print, Preview, and make sure that all of our lines look the way that we want them to look. Well, it looks good to me. One thing that happens though sometimes when you're cutting these, you have all these little pieces on the bottom, and it's helpful to keep these pieces in for stability when they go all the way through. But if you don't want those pieces, then you can get rid of those. I like to keep them, again, so the card will stand up. And if you want to know how to get rid of them, then you can look at last week's webinar for the instructions on that. Now, if I'm ready to cut this design, before I go on, anybody have any questions?
There are no questions at this point for you.
No. Everybody already knows all these things. That's okay. I'm way behind Susan in learning this software, but I know that there are a lot of people who would like to use it. And I remember when I first opened it up and started playing with it that I felt very clumsy. So I thought I'd give you something very simple tonight to help you with that. Now, if I want to cut this design, first I'm going to save it again because I changed it a little. And then to cut, you go to File and you go to Export and Project Rendering. Now, let me go to Public Gallery first. You know what? I could put this in the Public Gallery, and I could put the entire project there, and give it a name. I'll call this Irish Blessings. I'll call this holidays here, and basic pop-up card design by Julie for February 18th webinar, and upload. Now, there's no way to retrieve it yet, but Andy assures me that one of these days when we get enough designs that excuse me, we will be able to access all these nice designs that people have uploaded. So when that day comes, and you'll be able to get that file and use it. Meanwhile, we can export also as an SVG file if we wanted to maybe make some decorations to add, or if we wanted to add color to any of the letters. We might want to export as SVG. It gives it the same name, but it makes it an SVG file, so then you just click on Save, and it will be ready to use in your software, any software that uses SVG. And then, let's see, if we want to cut to our our cutter, we would also go to Export and then Project Rendering to Machine. When you click on To Machine, you select your machine, and the machines that show up here will be all the ones that you have plugins for Make the Cut. So let's say I select the Zing. Right here in this particular window is very important. If you're going to, right now you want to cut the mountain lines, the valley, and the hinge lines, and the cut lines all at once. You leave them all selected, which show in orange. But if you want to, and I recommend that you not cut them all at once, because these little dotted lines, unless you're very careful, can cause your fold lines to tear. I recommend that you do your score lines first at a lower cutting pressure if you're going to use your blade to do it. You could use a embossing tool or an engraving tool, or you can use your blade at a lower pressure that will just scrape the surface of your paper and allow you to fold it easily, but not cut all the way through. Then leave your, then you could go ahead and begin your cutting, and then, and I'm not connected, so you're going to set your force and your speed, and then you can just begin cutting. Then when you're finished, leave the mat in the machine, leave the blade right where it is, and then click on Cut Lines and turn off all of your score lines, and then go ahead and cut it again. And then, but don't forget to put your blade pressure back to cutting. You're cutting. When I'm using embossing tool, I don't change my force between the cutting and embossing, but if you're using your blade, you're going to want to use much less force for scoring. So I always do my first one, my prototype I call it, I do my first one in practice paper, because that's where I will see all of my mistakes in my design. If there are, and when you're first starting this, you make a lot of mistakes, at least I do. So this is where you change your design, or what you're going to be cutting or scoring here. And then when you're done cutting, you can click on Finished. Now, if you would like to, I like to use my embossing tool or engraving tool. I can go to Preferences and change some of those. I guess this is not where we do it in Preferences. Is it in Rendering Options? If suppose that I would like, right here we have short dashes selected for hinge lines, and short dashes for valley lines, and short dashes for mountain lines. If you want to do solid lines, if you're using an embossing tool, that'll work better. You can change the solid lines for all of these, and then you can save that. That was under File and Rendering Options, so that the lines would show up and print preview. It would show up as solid lines, and you'd only do this if you were going to use another tool or your blade at a lower force setting. And since sometimes I forget and I go to cut, and it'll slice your whole project and ruin it, you might want to leave them as dashed and just score the dash lines with rather than changing it to solid. But this can give you a cleaner look on your cards. Any other questions I haven't covered?
Not at this point.
Okay, well, the only other thing that I could think of is if we wanted to make a rainbow of colors for the letters, before we folded them over, we would have copied and pasted to make the cut, and I didn't do that. But then I could leave these letters here and then cut out colored ones to lay over them. But when Andy gets his other nice little export shapes thing done, then we would be able to cut the letters, just export these shapes and make the cut. Another thing that I do is I make a template for cutting the backing of this card. I make my backing a 1/2 inch wider and taller than the original card, and we have this thing in here under basic shapes of you could put your own shapes in there, so you can put other cards, your shapes. So I put some shapes in there, but really to do let's say I want to do a backing card, all I have to do is open a new file and change this to 6 by 4.5 and press enter and create. Now I have a card that's half the size of my original, that is just a little bigger than my original, so now I can go to File, Print Preview, and you see I've got my card all ready to cut, and I can render it just plain like this. and that would be my backing card. So I might name this save as backing, card backing. Then I don't have to remember every time what I wanted to do. And then to put this together, I would take this back, I would fold this all in half carefully and place it on the bottom of my backing with this closed. And with it closed, I will put the glue on the outside and make sure the hinges are all in there, and then close this lid. We have this nice little thing here that we can simulate opening and closing on the View Properties tab. So I close the card and hold it there until my glue dries, and then I open it up and I flip it over so that now the bottom of the card is up here, and now I'm going to put glue on all the back of all the pieces, back of this, and then close my card again and hold it firmly until the glue dries, and then when I open it up, the pieces will stay and pop up. So that's it, unless there's any more questions.
Nope. They said thank you. Excellent
No
tutorial.
more questions.
They learned some new things. Nice job. Beautiful card, etc. So thank you very much, Julie.
You're welcome.
Let me go ahead and any other questions for Julie before we switch back over to me? Okay. I don't see any coming in. Okay, I'm going to switch back over to me and show my screen. Okay, so one of the questions that came up while Julie was demonstrating was how to get these panels, to be underneath each other. So there's a couple things. Susan did a video on how to move these panels around. So I would encourage you to go, to look. But you can make them floating like this. You can dock them side by side, etc. By default, they should come up underneath one another, with the exception of if you're not doing full screen, you have to have a certain size for it to fit. If this is too narrow or not, tall enough to fit both of these panels, it'll move them to beside each other. So if I just move this, make this one a little bit smaller, you'll see that it pops up, and I can't, no matter what I do, I can't get them underneath one another. They just keep on switching back and forth. So make sure that if you're not full screen, I would try to change the order while you're full screen. There is a minimum number. I forget what Andy has on the site. I think it's probably the 768, vertical resolution that you need. But that's how you do these panels to move them around. And some panels, like this panel here, will only show up when you're in select mode. If I'm in a different mode, I get a different panel. And some panels may fit where other panels don't. Like this, you could probably make it really skinny, and it still is a certain size. So requires. So anyway, that's how you can just move things around to get them to fit. And I need to make it a little bit taller here. I always go to full screen, so I don't have the horizontal or vertical issue there.
Brian,
Yes.
after seeing so many different people's projects, see where you got the hinges and that thing?
Yeah.
Drop that one. Yeah, drop that one underneath that one.
Yeah, that
okay.
will eliminate
That,
some of the space you have available here.
yes, and it keeps popping back. So if people are having trouble, make sure that that's up on the other plane.
Yeah.
That hinge is up with the others. That's the biggest one people had trouble with.
So this is one where it'll fit in this size window if I only have one toolbar down here. But if I make this more than one, that won't fit in there. So again, Susan covers that in her video. I believe you covered that in your video, right? Somebody covered it before, these toolbars
Yes,
here.
yes, Help 23.
Help 23.
Help 023. Yep.
So that's it. Anyway, and then Gina, you're going to send me some screenshots because I'm not sure why you're having trouble keeping the order that you want there. So anyway, so that's that. Is there any other questions? Let me go back to full screen here. Let's see. Next time. One of the questions is, does PCS retain the name of the font so you know what font you used? And if you think about it and make the cut, when you use a font, the font name is actually kept as part of the layer. So if I added something here with impact, and then looked at the shape, or if I had a whole new layer, let's just do a new layer here. If I type in, heart, whatever, it'll keep until certain functions will overwrite the name of the layer, but it keeps the name of the font as part of the layer name or the shape name. In Popup Card Studio, you don't have this type of functionality, right? You don't have layers. You don't split them down into shapes. So right now, I don't believe it keeps anything. So let's, oops. I don't know what I just, oh, I know so let me do it on the right level here. So there's nothing, if I'm not in the font mode, there's nothing over here in the properties that'll tell me what this was named. So the answer to that question is no. It doesn't retain it in a way that you can look at it. Whether or not it retains it internally somewhere, I don't know, but it's not the same as Make the Cut, where you have the name of the layers and the name of the shapes that are kept and you can access to. Yeah, so Gina, real quick, when you open, first of all, when you set it the way you like it, you close all instances of Popup Card Studio and you open it again. Does it open up in full screen mode or not full screen? So does it open up like this or does it open up like this? And if it opens up like this, do you have to adjust the size in order to get them to be side or beneath each other? You know what I'm asking? Anyway, I'll wait. You're going to email me the screenshots. Okay. I'll look at it when you do the screenshots. The other thing, too, is when you open up a new project, let me just do it this way. I'll actually open up another instance of Popup Card Studio, which you can't see because it's over on this side. It will default to be in selection mode. So if you, yeah, let me just see. I'll wait till I get your screenshots. Then we can look at it.
Brian.
Yep.
Brian, also if you open another person's file, it then thinks that that's your preference of the way you want yours.
Yeah, but in her case, she's
set up.
opening up a brand new project, I think. So, yeah. So back to the font question. Colleen gives a good suggestion. You can type in, you have a notes section in Make the Cut, and you don't see it on mine because it's over here. So it would normally, I have two screens on my computer. So so in the notes sections, you can write in, you know, how come it's not? Let's try this again. Mine, I don't, maybe because of the video here, it's not letting me get into my. That's weird. Anyway, you can type
That's
notes
not a
in.
bug. That's a bug that I fixed. You just open up a new project.
Oh,
Don't
okay.
close that window. Just open up a new project. It's just a bug. It's been fixed.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you can type in there.
Now to PCS2,
It'll let me do it.
show
Gotcha.
there.
I used the impact font for happy birthday. So you can, you know, you can make your own notes in that and save it, and it'll be saved with the file. So that's a good point, Colleen. I think it was Colleen that made the suggestion here. Yes. Eileen, if you put a note in MTC, how do you get, okay, so make the cut, if you use the notes and make the cut, which is under view and then notes, if you have something, and again, it's coming up in my other window here, so if a project has something in the project notes, it by default will open it when you open up that project, and that's, I believe, Andy, you may have to help me on this, a setting. Yeah, automatic note view. So you can have this checked so that anytime you open a project that has a notes, either notes, you know, so there's something in the notes, either the text or the file, the attachment tab, it'll automatically open it up. And that's sort of handy to have, especially if you use other people's projects, because a lot of times they put in notes how to put things together, maybe some JPEG images of how to piece it together or where their inspiration came from or whatever. So rather than trying to remember, like, well, how the heck am I supposed to put this together? Just click this on. I think it's the default. And every time you open a project that has notes, it will open up automatically. I don't know. I think PCS, Andy, does it do the same thing? If it has a notes file, it will open it up automatically?
It does.
Yeah. So hopefully that answered your question, Eileen. Mine disappeared. That was the size of file. Oh, so in Popup Card Studio, if you go to Help, there's an Advanced under Help and then Advanced Settings. And that's where a lot of the things that have been added, you know, in releases as Make the Cut has, you know, increased in releases, you know, the imaging and that kind of stuff. This is where you can have find a lot of those advanced options, and that's one of them. Okay. Okay, any other questions on that? Any questions at all? And while you're thinking about that, so any questions on anything we've covered or any new subjects? Go ahead and type it in.
Don't see any.
Okay. And if you'd like to, if you have a microphone and would like to be unmuted and make a comment or ask a question, go ahead and raise your hand. In the meantime, while you're thinking about that, I'm just going to do, there's been some activity on the forum lately talking about how to get specific colors and the custom colors. And Oki Ladybug provided this file in this thread, and there's a couple other, either she or somebody else, I think Liz had provided a couple Make the Cut files that basically have the different color codes in it. And I sort of read through quickly on how they do that. I'm just going to show you a quick trick. It's still a manual process in one sense, but I don't think it's as manual as some of the people are making it. So anytime you want to do a specific color in Make the Cut, you know, like say I want this a specific color, I can go to the color, you know, set color, I can pick one of the whatever 16 or 24 whatever colors we have here, or I can go to custom color. And when you go to custom color, you can add in different ways of putting things in, the RGB, the hue, saturation, luminance, etc. You can select from this. You can sort of say, well, I want it to be a red, but then I want it a little bit darker, and then you can sort of scroll it down. And you get different values here. Or in the case, I believe, of Oki's, no, maybe it was Liz's, she actually put in the RGB values. So what I wanted to show, I'm going to use, in addition to this, I'm going to use somebody else's file here. So let me bring up her. So DH Chick has this thread where she has provided graciously a bunch of fancy tags. And I'm going to use the one that she provided, which was the heart, just to demonstrate this. Sort of my quick technique. I modified it in that I made it 2 specific colors, gray and black, and I made 4 copies of it. So I have multiple shapes on each layer. So let's say you're designing along. She designed this. She has multiple shapes on each layer, and she says, okay, I want this layer to be a specific color, and I want it to be, I don't know, raspberry ripple. So you can, the easiest way to do this is you can, Control C, whatever color, however you do it. In this case, this has to do, I think, with Stampin' Up! Colors, specific named colors, and she put in the right, she went in and did the right color for this. So if we went to color texture, select color, we would see that it's 146 for red, 21 for green, and 37 for blue. Now you could go ahead and put those numbers back in here and say, okay, I want the, I want the, whatever it was. Try to remember the numbers that we typed in here. The easier way to do it is after you put all your designs on, if you have something like this, take this. In this case, I'm going to Control C, copy it. So I could do Edit Copy, Control C. I'm going to go to my other layer. I'm going to make sure I'm on the layer that I want to be that color, and I just paste it. It doesn't matter where it is. We're going to get rid of it eventually. When you paste this, this is now the top object in this layer. You'll see that it's the top object. When you go to Custom Colors, whatever color the top object is, that's what the custom color is going to default to. So if I just come down here and say Custom Color, I can click on it, but you can see that I have the 146, 21, 37. So all I have to do is say OK. And now I have that. Those hearts are exactly that color. And now this is selected. I can hit Delete on my keyboard. And let's say I want the background to be a different color. I want it to be Riding Hood red. So I'm going to copy that, Control C, come over, oops, sorry, go to the right page here. I want to make sure I'm on the layer that I want to make that, the shapes in that layer to be colored. Control V, go to Custom Color, and hit OK. And now I have, and delete this. And now I have those hearts, this layer to be that specific raspberry ripple. Yeah, raspberry ripple. And the backgrounds to be Riding Hood red. And that's just an easy way. You don't have to try to transfer the numbers around and that kind of stuff. So if you do this a lot for your designing as the last step to change everything on that layer, now it works for at the layer level. If you're still doing individual shapes to specific colors, then there's no necessarily easy way around that. You still have to go into that shape, select the color, and whatever, put the numbers in. But that, I just thought that'd be a quick tip for those, because there seemed to be a lot of conversation on, how do you get specific colors to match either inks, markers, card stock, whatever the case may be. So I just thought I'd throw that out there, experiment with it. It might be what you're doing now. It might be easier than what you're doing now. So, yeah. And I just, so in my, and you could probably, I haven't tried it, but you could probably even save this in your custom shapes. But if you have it, you might as well just open it up. I mean, you can have multiple projects open, so just have that the first thing you open up if you know you're going to be doing something. And then, so let's say I wanted this vase to be a certain color. What color vase do we want? Oops. We want the vase to be whatever this one is, Midnight Muse. So So we go over, go to this project, go to that layer, Control V, custom paste or custom color. Okay. Now I'm not in and then hit delete. I'm not in contrast, so that's why we're not seeing that there. But now I have that color for everything on that layer. In this case, it was just one shade. So just a thought. You know, because I know obviously Oki and Liz, whoever else has these blocks, they went through a lot of trouble to actually, you know, create each of these blocks. I think Liz, you did it. However, whatever the number of custom colors you can have when you do this, you know, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, so 16 colors. I think you did in blocks of 16 or 8 or something. But if you go through that trouble once, just save it, and that's your reference page. And copy and paste, you don't have. I think Oki says that she like would block it out and resize it. Let's see, she would copy and paste it, but yeah, just do copy and paste, and then do a blackout to get rid of the lettering, and then change the dimensions. But this way, you can do all your designing, and if you're not, you know, whatever. Anyway, just a thought. Okay, did questions come in while I was doing that, or did anybody raise their hand? I don't see anybody's hand raised.
No
Don't see
questions
any.
come through, just a lot of that your way's easier.
Well, and again, you know, we say this over and over and over and over and over again. In Make the Cut, and now also in Popup Card Studio, there's many different ways to accomplish the same end result. Something that's easier for me may not be easier for you. Something that's easy for you may not make sense to me, so it wouldn't be easier for me. Or it may be that, you know, half a dozen of one, 6 of one, half dozen of the other, is that the saying? But just experiment, see what happens when you do things. So anyway. So Gina asked, can color palettes be imported like a Copic color palette? And in the sense that you're talking about it, not imported, like there's not an import command. But if you make up something like this, which is just a bunch of blocks with either their color numbers, I don't know if they use names or numbers, you know, you can go through the work, and because somewhere, usually the places that are very color conscious, markers, stamps, that kind of stuff, somewhere on that manufacturer site you can find out the exact RGB value of that color. And then, you know, so you can do something similar to this. The other way, and I think it was you, Liz, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you save a project and you have custom colors, like I don't have any custom colors down here, but if you add a bunch of custom colors here and save the project, then when you open up that project, those custom colors will still be there. So that's how you can do it. But a lot of, if you have more than 16, I think sort of the way Oki did it here, I don't know how she decided what order, you know, she did it, but you know, in terms of, you know, rows and columns, but maybe it's alphabetical. That's what it is. It's alphabetical. So in this case, they know the color names by the name, and they use them enough that they know. Okay, I want the cherry color, or I want the, you know, chocolate chip or crumb cake, or whatever the case may be. So there's not an easy thing. There's other ways you can do stuff. You can do that. You can use, there's you know, free tools like Cop Picker, Color Cop, I think it's called. But you then eventually, in essence, have to go in and you know, select this, go in and transfer the RGB values manually. So yeah, if all you want to do is add one, like here, you gave me the RGB value, 15, 156, and 78. So you just come in here and go to color, either at the layer level or the object level. So we're going to do 15 for red. Sorry, yes, and then 156 for green, and 78 for blue. And you can add it to custom color so it stays over here, and then OK, and that will also assign it here. So that should be, that doesn't look TARDIS blue for me on this particular screen. So maybe I did something wrong. But again, between my two monitors, I don't have my monitors calibrated. So even between my two monitors, I get different colors. You know, if I move like the green, if I'm in the green mode back, you know, on the.
Gina says no, she sent you the wrong numbers. She'll send you the right numbers.
Oh, okay.
It's green.
Yeah, so, but the easiest, if it's just a one-shot deal and you know what the numbers are, it's just easier to go right into custom color. And this dialog, by the way, is a standard Windows dialog box. This is not a make the cut or Andy's design. This is a standard Windows color picker box. So these colors and what you can do with it, you know, either the hue, saturation, and luminance, or the RGB values you can do. So, so let's just out of curiosity, let's switch these two. 78 and 156. Add it. I should have moved it over, so I saved the other one. You know, so is that a? And don't forget, in Make the Cut, the only time you're going to get true opaque colors are if you're in the contrast sheet. If you're in any of these other ones, you're going to get translucent, so you can sort of see through it. So you'll see that this will change based on, you know, the color doesn't really look the same, like even just off-site or off the other shapes. That doesn't look the same blue as it does in contrast. So if you want to be visually looking at the true colors, either move to contrast matte or go just do a quick print preview, and the print preview should show you the true colors, or the opaque colors. Sorry. Okay. 1578 156. So I did get it right. 1578 156. Yeah. So this is the blue that this is the right blue. Again, if we are on contrast. Okay. And there was in one of these threads, oh, this one right here. So there's sites like this where you can, you know, look at different colors. Now you, unfortunately, because you can't, like I can't copy and paste from here directly to Make the Cut, but let's say that I like this real red, let's not do real red, rose red. You know, you can sort of put together your palette, and then you'd have to use something like Color Cop. Let's see if I have that here. Color, or is it Cop Color? I always forget the name of it here. I don't know if I have it on this machine. No, I'm not finding it, so maybe I don't have it on this machine. Color. I thought for sure I did, but I don't. It's interesting. Anyway, it's a free tool, and that's also on one of the threads. They give a link to it. So anyway, that's just since nobody had questions. Okay, so Lee asks, will these colors be accurate for print and cut? So that's the age-old question when you're dealing with specific colors. And the general answer is probably not. I mean, Make the Cut will spit out a specific color, but just like my monitors have different colors, like if I bring up a green, you know, like the green value of say 123, and then 00 for the other two, it will look different on one of my monitors than it will on my other monitor based on how I have the color settings. There are color profiles that can be embedded in certain certain raster image programs can use color profiles that you match to your printer and your inks, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but basically you have to match it so that when you say you want to print out this value, what your computer sends to the printer and what the printer prints out with the color cartridges that, or the color inks / toner that you have will be as accurate as you can get. But just off the shelf, it's sort of loosey-goosey. I mean, you'll get sort of colors that may or may not be exactly what you think they should be or how they look on your monitor. So if you're really into the color, if you're doing, printing, you're doing stuff for printer, or you want accurate, you have people that will, there's ways to calibrate your screen to get the colors to display on your screen correctly, as well as color profiles for your printers, and not all programs can handle color profiles. So, for the layman, most of us laymen, just whatever the printer prints, that's fine. And you can see this too. Take a picture, go to a couple different, Walgreens, CVS, whatever, Walmarts, print out the same picture using their quote-unquote photographic equipment, and then compare them, and you'll have different colors, visually, side by side, because none of the cheap ones really calibrate their colors that well. So I know that was a long answer, but that's my answer. I'm sticking to it. And Make the Cut does not embed color profiles or use embedded color profiles in raster images. I think that's been asked a while ago, but that is not something that Make the Cut does. It's that just use standard RGB stuff. Okay, other questions? Nothing. Okay, so let me go ahead and stop the recording.